episode of the Sports Enthusiast podcast. I am your host, Aaron Randak, joined by...
Ashton McConnell.
And Lucas McGee.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We understand that we are approximately the most inconsistent human beings on the face of the earth. We haven't had an episode in months. Before that, we hadn't had an episode in months, but we do plan on sticking to a semi-consistent schedule here, especially with the whole Super Bowl and throughout the NBA season and the MLB offseason. Lucas, Ashton, add any thoughts as you need? Anything?
I just personally like to say I'm really excited to be back. I like to say that my sports insights have gotten better, but that would be a lie. I'm just going to send it. This is going to be great. Ashton, what do you know?
Nothing much. I'm just happy to be back. Been a lot of great sports going on right now, and yeah, ready to talk about them.
All right, so I'm going to kick it over to Ashton here, and we'll start on the NFL.
Obviously, we have reached Super Bowl. It is Chiefs, Bucks, but before we get to that, there has been a lot of drama going on around the league, including breaking news, which was pretty much known a few weeks ago, but made official now by Deshaun Watson that he wants out of Houston. I'll start with Lucas. Give me your thoughts.
Here's my thing. To me, if I was Deshaun Watson, I understand his frustration 100%. I'm not going to stand here and tell you guys that it is a stupid trade request, but I kind of want to know, I wonder if he understands he's probably going to head somewhere with probably worse weapons. I like Will Fuller. I like Brandon Cooks. There are good receivers for him. David Johnson's the best receiving back that he could have got for the price that he's being paid. I think the defense was okay, but all around that team just had errors and no line, and I could see that being a reason that drove him out. But to me, I feel like there's a chance he gets screwed. He ends up on a Jets team or something that's just going to hurt. And to me, I don't know. I'm surprised that he still ended up leaving. I wonder if they didn't consult him on the coaching, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, I don't necessarily think that the Texans were all that bad of a roster. I mean, I believe it was all bad coaching because their offensive line really isn't that bad. They have the best left tackle in the league in Laremy Tunsil, who they traded for last year, which obviously, when you look at it this year, it's a bit of a lopsided trade because the Dolphins now have the third pick, I believe, because of that. But in hindsight, it's always 2020. But when you looked at it last year, you actually thought that was a decent trade. You always give up what you need for the best left tackle in football. As for that defense, it was disgusting this year. I was kind of high on them coming in, but they just really got nothing done. I believe that loss of Jadeveon Clowney a couple years ago really is actually coming to hurt them because if they had him right now, I believe this is a whole different story.
I can agree with that, yeah. I mean, they'd have two of the best edge rushers right now. But
yeah. And then they'd also have guys like Whitney Merciless and the inside backers to stop the run. As for the tangent that I'm trying to think of what I was going to say. Oh, DeAndre Hopkins. They had to trade him in the offseason. They just had to. Obviously, the return was not what they wanted or anybody expected, but Deshaun should have known that there was no way they would be able to pay Tunzel, Hopkins, and him and still keep a relatively okay defense. So, yeah, I'm kind of surprised by the trade. I believe a lot of the issues were coaching, or the trade request, I believe a lot of the issues were coaching, and I don't know where he thinks he's going to end up. That's a better situation.
Well, lucky for Deshaun, he has a no trade clause. So I guess I don't know how that'll fully work if he can have control, but if he is about to get traded to a team he doesn't want to, like his top teams are the Jets and the Dolphins, if he gets traded to, I don't know, a team that he necessarily isn't a fan of, he could just say, hey, I have this no trade clause, I own leverage. But regarding the situation with Deshaun, as kind of Aaron mentioned, not only was it kind of the coaching with Bill O'Brien, but it also leads up to the owner as well. I mean, he basically gave the keys to Bill O'Brien to not only be head coach, but the GM. And what do you know? They get rid of Davian Clowney. They pay 2 first-round picks for Laremy Tunsil. While, yes, he's helpful for Deshaun Watson. That's only 1 out of 5 players. If you saw him throughout the year, he was still running for his life. Not to mention, yes, Aaron, while they did have to get rid of Hopkins, I think because of how bad of a GM Bill O'Brien was for how much they got, I think Deshaun, not only that, but they didn't even listen to any of his requests for the GM, which goes all the way to the owner. So this is bad blood, not only for Deshaun, but it seems like J.J. Watt could be on the way out too, and this whole organization is just a mess.
Well, it's definitely time for a full rebuild, in my opinion. As for like where we think he's gonna go, I put down a couple teams that my four really were the Colts, Redskins, Patriots, and 49ers. If I had to put those in order, it'd probably be Redskins number one, Patriots two, Niners three, Colts four. I just like the fit for all of those teams, and I think, and when you look at the Redskins, they're in prime position to take control of that NFC East, and I think they should go after Deshaun.
I think another team you didn't mention be my Carolina Panthers. That'll probably make a move
Yeah.
for him. I don't think we can pull it off because it'd just be such a weird trade that we would have to make. But to me, they do have the leverage for it, and I think he'd be a decent fit. I don't know how big of a fan I'd be of it, just because it'd be a lot of money on a quarterback and a running back. But I mean, that's I guess how you win football games. Um, I wouldn't. I think I'm against the Washington trade just because I've heard them talking a lot about wanting to stick with Alex Smith for another year and try to take a quarterback out of the draft next year, someone like a Sam Howell or a Spencer Rattler. And I think that's both those quarterbacks are better fits than what they could be getting now. And to me, that's the route I see Washington taking. However, if they can get him for a decent price, obviously they're going to bite. He'd be a great combo with Gibson, but it is what it
Well,
is.
for me, like when you look at that NFC East, like it's Washington's division to lose at this point, and I think there's no reason they shouldn't go all out because you never know what you're getting when a drafted quarterback. When you can trade for Deshaun Watson, who year in and year out is a top five quarterback, you take that opportunity.
The 3 teams I would say I would like for Deshaun, the main one I would say would be the Dolphins. The other two, the Colts and the Redskins, because of the talent and the defense, and not to mention the great coaching. Obviously, Ron Rivera, Brian Flores, you name it. I mean, all those teams have great coaching, a great overall supporting cast, and I would say the Dolphins not only because of you saw what Brian Flores did with the Dolphins this year, almost not even expected to do anything and almost making the playoffs, but I think Deshaun would fit well. They're getting great support overall, and yeah,
So you think the Dolphins just give up on Tua?
And that's where I had troubles with the Dolphins fit was for them to really just call it after 1 year of a guy who is slowly playing better. I think that's kind of an interesting way to go, but I could also see it being a benefit for Houston. I mean, they'd be getting Tua, who showed some promise last year, not a lot, but some. I mean, it's yeah,
Well, you got to think that'd be at least probably three or four first round picks with Tua because if you Tua is essentially a first round pick that you're wasting, for that Deshaun Watson trade. That's a lot of value for for Deshaun, which you could argue is warranted.
which is why I feel like it could be a win-win for both. Obviously, Miami, Deshaun Watson, he's already proven himself, and Tua, while he hasn't proven himself, you saw what was going on in Miami, where it was a question: is Fitzmagic playing? Is Tua going to be playing? It just you don't know if they really have the trust in him. And in Houston, if they get him, you can really see if Tua will actually be what he's projected to be, which could be a great quarterback.
Yeah, I do think he would be kind of fitting the timeline of the Texans if they can flip that roster around quickly and go for a Super Bowl run-in with Tua on a rookie contract. You know, sign a couple free agents this offseason. I don't actually think that would be the worst idea. But nonetheless, any other thoughts?
Lucas?
nope.
Well, that's just one of the big quarterback trades. The other one, Matthew Stafford. I feel this is another interesting deal that could happen. Lucas?
Matthew Stafford's been there for a really long time. We all know that. I have kind of been a Stafford fan since he got drafted. I thought it was a good fit for him back then. I still was a fan of it, but he is getting old. I can see why they'd want to move on. Detroit's essentially probably going to try and blow it up. I mean, they don't have that much going for them.
Which they should.
Let's hope they do, or else it's going to be kind of questionable. And for me, I think them having a chance at a young quarterback in this draft, there's a lot of electric ones that we'll elaborate more after the Super Bowl. But I just wonder, is he on a free agent or is he a trade?
He's a trade.
I wonder who's willing to take on that contract. I wasn't for sure if he had another year left.
No matter what,
cheapest.
his cap hit's going to be a lot less than Deshaun Watson's.
That's true. You're getting a lot less of a player out of Matthew Stafford.
I completely disagree with that.
Deshaun Watson was the number one quarterback, passing yards, I believe, last year. Stafford was not. And you could say people around him. I understand that. You could say the Lions suck. I fully agree with you. But if you're looking just at stats blatantly, it's not close.
I'm looking at the play, and I think you're going to get another 2 to 3 years of prime Stafford. And when he is on, he is a top 10 quarterback in the league, no question about it.
You can only say top 10 for 10 quarterbacks, Aaron. When you start to hit 15, you can't keep saying top 10.
It's 10. This guy has had nothing his entire career besides Calvin Johnson. And when he had Calvin Johnson, they put up numbers.
He briefly had Calvin Johnson. I'll give you that. That becomes an argument of how you feel about like Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay. I mean, they're two okay to good receivers, and
their non-existent running game.
Yeah, they're 25 different running game.
Just for context reasons, $33 million is the seventh highest cap hit among quarterbacks.
Okay, to call him a seventh best quarterback, I know you can't do it that way, but you know what I'm trying to get at. I just don't see the money for the buck, but obviously someone's going to bite. I'll be interested to see who it is. I personally would stay away from Stafford. I don't think he has that many years left in his prime. Personally, I'm willing to be wrong on that, but I don't think he has that much left.
And I'm going to have to disagree with you because for a quarterback, he's only 32 years old,
and he's been getting smacked for the last
Exactly.
few years.
If he gets behind a good offensive line, he might win MVP.
He's in pain. I don't know if he's going to have that long quarterback career. He gets hit
and
almost as much as any other
quarterback. He does. He plays through a lot. He plays through a lot more than any other quarterback.
That's true. He gets smacked around, and I think that's going to wear.
Watson wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. I think Stafford.
It's not to the level of Stafford.
Stafford got destroyed.
Stafford's been screwed over the most out of any quarterback, probably ever. He coming out of college, he was maybe a top 5 talent we had ever seen, and he has proven to be that. He just hasn't had anybody around him.
Again, I think you're overestimating. I'm not gonna try and be able to back up my statement with that. I personally don't see the hype on Stafford that you both see. I don't know how heavy of a team's gonna bite on him. I mean, you can maybe get a first out of him. I don't know if you're gonna get that big booming trade you'll get with Watson, which is warranted. Stafford's a little older, but I'm not as big on Stafford as you two are, personally.
I think if he can land on the Colts or the Niners, that would be huge. Out to the Niners, which I think they can move off of Jimmy G after this year, or maybe they have to wait a year. But if one of those two teams can get him with a good O-line, I think that would make Stafford a really, really good quarterback this year and potentially get to see the talent that we've seen in Detroit, but just hasn't had the O-line help.
Ashton, I completely agree with you there. The one issue with the Colts, though, is they really don't have a lot to offer. They had to give up that second-round pick for DeForest Buckner.
Which was a great trade, in my opinion.
It was a great trade, but that diminishes their assets. And they also don't really have a great quarterback to swap. They have Brissett, but he's not an elite-level quarterback.
They have Fromm if you want to make the argument for a young quarterback. I think
True.
They can throw a couple young players out there that might be able to entice them. Maybe move like T.Y., who had a very unproductive year but is still a good receiver. I mean, there's all those things you can factor in.
I don't think Ty has any value for the Lions. There is no reason the Lions should get T.Y. Hilton.
They could use a third receiver because if they're gonna have a rookie quarterback coming into next year,
Well,
they're
if you're
gonna
gonna
want
blow
one
it
of the
up,
receiving
there's
help.
T.Y. Hilton is not going to be there for the long haul in that rebuild.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, 49ers hit it out of the park. This is an easy trade. Throw Jimmy G in there. Throw a first. Throw a third. This gets done. Niners going to the Super Bowl next year.
Bold prediction there,
I
especially
just
with
if they get this trade, Stafford is an infinite upgrade from Jimmy G, especially his remains after being hurt for however many years. I think Stafford in San Francisco is a perfect fit, especially under Kyle Shanahan, who we know will run the ball, and we've seen what he can do with even an above average quarterback, which we saw in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. I think we see that similar production from the Niners next year if they get Stafford.
I
honestly,
just want to cut in here and say I personally thought that the Niners were a playoff team until every single player on that defense got hurt, and that's
Exactly.
why that's. I mean, I feel like even Jimmy could have got them to the playoffs. I think I'm not gonna say he could have got them to the Super Bowl, but I think the running backs would have helped. There, he had an amazing running game with Mostert and 25 other running backs. I mean, even JaMychal Hasty was getting 50 yards a game when he had to play. I mean, I think this team has a lot of talent, and I don't think Stafford's really going to be this immaculate core. He's going to look like one because he's going to have an amazing supporting cast, but I don't know if I'll be able to give all the credit to Stafford in that situation. Ashton, go ahead.
I am gonna go with Aaron here. I feel like if I don't, I'm not gonna guarantee Super Bowl, but I'm gonna guarantee they will be a heavy contender, especially with that defense, the young stars on offense, and not to mention, we don't know what's gonna happen with Tampa. While yes, it's Tom Brady, you never know with the rest of the roster. Green Bay. I mean, it hurts to say, but we don't. I don't know what's going on with their situation. You got Seattle, which it seems like they're having issues with play calling, and I mean, the Niners could definitely do what they did a couple of years ago. And imagine if they would have had Stafford then, would they have won? So
Hmm. And let's be real, the Niners probably have 2 to 3 years until they get into cap hell and have to pay everybody. So I think there's no reason that they won't just go for this.
And I think this would be good for them to get into this kind of a quarterback situation because when they do get into cap hell, they're going to be okay. Because it is, I think Stafford's got 1 or 2 years left. At least then they
two
have
years on
those.
his contract.
At least then they have that money leaving, and they don't even have to consider signing him back if he wants a ton of money.
Hmm.
You know, they can just say, all right, we can move on from here. We got our 2 Super Bowls that I don't know if they're actually going to win, but it's a good situation if they are trying to blow it up in 2 years. Not that they're going to blow it up, but you get what I mean.
Yep.
Well, they're gonna have to.
Unless they can get some people to stay just to keep winning championships. It happens more in the NBA, but maybe they do it there.
True. Well, that's all for me.
Same.
All right. While we through the trade talk, let's talk with about one of the most important things: retirement and Hall of Fame. So obviously, it seems like Drew Brees is probably going to be done in New Orleans. There's no doubt Hall of Famer, but the question mark, Philip Rivers.
He
I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, Lucas. We'll
he
let you
is a
start.
Hall of Famer. I don't even have to hesitate. The guy let it. I mean, the guy was consistently in the playoffs for that first like decade, I think it was. I mean, he was always producing a decent team. I always thought Rivers was a pretty good quarterback. I was pretty big on him. I don't know. He didn't do much in Indianapolis this year, in my opinion, but they still made the playoffs. He was a great leader. I'm very big on Philip Rivers. I think he might not get in right as soon, but I think he will end up in the Hall of Fame, one way or another.
There's no reason he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. He's fifth all time in passing yards and touchdowns. That that just screams Hall of Famer. I don't see why there's any debate on this one.
I honestly didn't know he racked up that many career stats. I just really thought he was a good quarterback.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys too. The stats prove it, and no Super Bowl. I mean, there's no high-end team. It's 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and special teams. You need everyone to support. And for a little bit of time, the Chargers had rough special teams, which kind of cost them even in the playoffs. So if that's Philip Rivers' fault, if people say that, I don't know what to say about that. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
All
They
right,
did have a lot
trivia
of good
question.
teams. Okay.
Trivia question. All right. Out of these four quarterbacks, who has the most passing yards? Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Joe Flacco.
Ryan.
I'd say Ryan Rodgers.
Yep, Matt Ryan, 55,000 compared to Rodgers 51, Stafford 45, and Flacco 40.
Credit to
Figured I'd get
Flacco
you
for
guys
getting
on.
40. Don't think he was that good of a quarterback, but hey, go Joe Flacco. All right, I'm just going to carry on from there. We're talking about two holes that are going to have to be filled. I mean, who's taking over in New Orleans? Who's taking over in Indianapolis? I'll make Ashton
Which
start.
one? Which one do you guys want to start with?
New Orleans.
Well, I would say Jameis, but here's two things. One, they obviously have Taysom Hill on his contract, his I think 20 mil a year or something like that. And two, with Drew Brees' contract, they kept pushing it back, and now they're going to have a bunch of dead cap. And now, will Jameis be willing to take the pay cut, or will he try his luck somewhere else? And with that, then you would have to roll with Taysom Hill. In my opinion, I think they would be better off with Jameis Winston, but we'll see what happens. Lucas?
Who's going to really want to pay Jameis that much right away? Hasn't played in a year kind of thing. To me, Jameis would take a 1 year deal at a small amount of money and prove that he's the quarterback and then leave. And to me, that sets them up for a good late round quarterback next year. Aaron's boy Brock Purdy out of Iowa State. I think he's going to be I think he'd just fit perfect in that system because he can throw a lot of passes a game, as he showed late in the season when they started just throwing the ball at Brees Hall and start running into him. And I mean, if you can get those kind of quarterbacks late in the draft that are going to step into a system that is going to really rely heavily on Kamara and slant routes to Michael Thomas, I mean, at that point, do you need to? You could run Taysom Hill there, or you can go back to one of these quarterbacks you take late in the draft. I don't think that the Saints have to worry. If Jameis even doesn't stay for a year, I think they can take someone late in the draft that can fill in when Taysom needs a break because he's doing tight end, then quarterback, then receiver, then running back, then probably playing left tackle because he's Taysom Hill. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Well, the Saints are in cap hell. We talked about the Niners potentially going there. The Saints are in it. They will be $100 million over the cap, over the projected cap next year, and we'll have to find some way to get that number down, which I don't really know how they're going to do it. So they're going to have to cut a lot of people and not pay a lot of people, which the Saints have not been known to do. So I believe their quarterback will have to come from in-house. I believe Jameis could potentially sign that short-term deal, but it does look like if you're paying Taysom Hill $20 million, he has to be your starting quarterback.
Yeah, overall, it's just tough situation for the Saints. While I do think Jameis would be better if they have to, especially with how much they're in the dead cap situation, you might just have to roll with Taysom and pray that it works out.
It's time to
Anyways,
blow it up.
And
oh yeah,
I think the whole pushing the cap off thing was their way of saying as soon as Breeze leaves, we're done. But now it puts them in an interesting situation because they have, in my opinion, maybe the best running back in football in Alvin Kamara, multi-purpose running back. I won't say he's the best running back, but multi-purpose running back Alvin Kamara, who's still very young, and you're gonna have him sitting on a team that blows because you're gonna have to cut everybody else. I really wonder if they're gonna try and deal him for 1,000 picks and a half. And I don't know who would really bite on a running back because every team has an okay running back that they wouldn't want to give up a first rounder for. At least that's what I'm feeling. And that's
Well,
why
and
I think
every
they're going to
team
have troubles
knows.
blowing it up. But
Well, and every team knows that there's no reason to trade for a running back. There just isn't.
there's
You
a
know, you
1,000
can,
of them.
yeah, you can find some random guy out of Jacksonville State University in the 18th round of the MLB draft, You call him up, and he can play running back for you. Like, look at James Robinson.
Great example. I mean, no one had any predictions for that guy coming in, and now he's a very good power back.
Mm-hmm. So that's all for me.
Same. Well, we might as well skip it over to the Colts if Mr. McConnell doesn't have anything to say. Now let's talk about what the Colts want to do. You got Jacoby Brissett. You got Jake Fromm. You have an early draft pick. What are you doing? Well, not early, but an okay draft pick. Go ahead.
I mentioned Deshaun Matthew earlier with the Colts, but actually thinking about it, I would go with one of those two. Probably, I think that's the time to deal for Deshaun Watson. I mentioned they do have a bit of a depleted asset base, but they do have that higher pick than the Niners do, I believe. So, and this roster is good enough to go for it. They have a fantastic defense to force Buckner, along with a very deep secondary, and a good linebacking core. Their offensive line is obviously insanely good with Quentin Nelson and those boys. Their receiving core could use some work, but if you're going to be lacking at a position, receiver, running back, those skill positions are typically what you want to be lacking in. So yeah, I could see the Colts potentially going for it with Deshaun Watson.
I would not be surprised if they went Jake Fromm. The guy played excellent football all the way through college. He sat behind Phillip Rivers all year. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to go to the young gun. I mean, he's definitely in a great position to do so.
Fromm is trash, man.
I mean, it's very hard to say that when he hasn't played an NFL game yet. He played great football in college, and it's either him or Brissett for me.
There's a reason why he was touted as a first-round pick, and he wasn't a first-round pick.
Or is the fact that there was 85,000 quarterbacks that draft. Like any other draft, I mean, there's
he was
tons
supposed
of
to be one of those top 3 guys, and he just fell off the face of the earth there his last year in college.
And he had a really bad combine too, but that's another thing that pushed him pretty far back. I mean, just the fact that Josh Allen jumped from a late first round to that early first round is what it is, I guess. Anyway, to me they're going in house. I don't know if they want to make that trade because they know they have to sacrifice. And I don't know if there's a quarterback they'd want to sign. And I don't think they'll go quarterback in draft because I think they know they can take a receiver like a Devontae Smith or a Jamar Chase. Ashton, what do you think?
Well, I've been kind of on par with Aaron here, saying I think they should go after either Matthew or Deshaun because while Jake Fromm might have the potential.
When did the Colts get Jake Fromm?
Whoops. They have one of the rookie quarterbacks. I knew he was somewhere. Hold on.
Because it's not the Colts.
Yeah. You're right.
But, no, it's Jake. It's Jake Eason or whatever.
Jacob Eason?
Yeah, it was Eason. It was the other fucking Florida State quarterback. Or not Florida State. Georgia quarterback.
I mean, I guess I went with you too, so I shouldn't be talking too much.
So did I. But anyway, I think they would be better off just making the trade. Considering how talented this roster could be, I don't think you want to put pressure and just rely on a young quarterback like Jacob Eason, just hopefully booming when you could rely on Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, knowing what they can bring to the table for this roster.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Not for me.
No.
All right. Well, before we end the NFL, let's go over the playoffs. While, yes, COVID has fulfilled this whole NFL season, just like the NBA, we managed to get through it, and we're at the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Bucks making it. But going over the whole playoffs, I'll start with you, Lucas. Who is one team that you were surprised by and one team that disappointed you the most this postseason?
I'll start with the team that disappointed me. It was honestly the Washington football team. I really thought that they were built into a situation where they could have pulled something off. I thought they were in a great contention. Unluckily, they played Tampa Bay in the wild card game. I still thought they had the potential to win that game, and they just didn't play the game that I thought they were going to play, and it disappointed the shit out of me.
Interesting.
I disagree with that, but okay.
Yeah. My most disappointing team was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was a big fan of them all year. Obviously, went what were they 9-0, whatever. Then they just fell off an absolute cliff, and yeah, their offense couldn't score any points. And obviously, the first play of the game, scoop and
Oh
score,
yeah,
botch snap, that doesn't help.
and
Definitely
then
didn't
Ben
help.
threw 4 picks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of
Well, for me, my most disappointing team was the Seattle Seahawks. After doing all that talking against the Rams, how you win the division, and then you put out that performance in the wild card game. Not to mention, I think the real downfall began when the Giants beat them, and I don't know what week it was, but I think that's when you started to realize concerns with this team. Not to mention, I mean, their defense was playing better than it was, even though it wasn't the greatest. It was playing average. The offense just was not clicking at all, and like DK said, it was basically predictable: run, run, and then deep throw. I mean, it was just very disappointing for Seattle, especially with Russell Wilson at quarterback. And I just I feel like they could have done. I had them going to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for my Packers against the Chiefs. So, all right,
Ready?
Lucas.
Oh, yep.
The
Oh,
team
I
that
was gonna
surprised
say,
me was the Browns, who beat Aaron Steelers. They played an amazing game for the standard I have the Browns at. I did think the team was good. I didn't think they were going to beat the Steelers. I really thought the Browns were going to catch the Chiefs when they essentially destroyed Patrick Mahomes' head. But he played next week. I guess he was fine. And, I mean, to me, he's just, or the team was just, the defense is what I'm trying to get at, was just amazing. So,
My team that surprised me the most was the Los Angeles Rams. The reason I say that is because they came in with half of a quarterback and they still got a playoff win and played the Packers very well in that game. And I think they did everything they could to at least give themselves a chance at going to the NFC Championship.
and then I'm gonna have to go with Lucas here. I also think it was the Browns. While I've been a big fan of the Browns over these past couple of years, it seemed unfortunate that their playoff hopes were going to die because of COVID. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski was out. I believe Denzel Ward was out, and maybe a couple other players. I thought that the lack of coaching was definitely going to hurt them, but nope. They stepped it up when they needed to, and overall, I think we got to see Baker can be this team's franchise quarterback, and for the future, I think they just need to figure out the defensive issues, and I think they could definitely be a possible Super Bowl contender, even though the Chiefs are the real threats.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the National Basketball Association? I hear
I
no
am good to
objections.
go.
All right. Top 5 power rankings. Lucas, start at number 5.
number 5 for me would be the Indianapolis Pacers, a team that no one's really buying into, that is playing the basketball they need to play to continue to win games. Domantas Sabonis is playing good basketball. I think the Pacers are currently the 5th best team in basketball.
Really?
And they're the 3rd in the East, and I go typically how they're standing inside of their conference. I would have said the Cavs, but they're kind of not doing what they were doing last week, which sucks because I'm a huge Colin Sexton fan, but that's beside the fact. Yeah, to me, Pacers at 5.
Really? Okay. Ashton?
To me, I'm going to go with the Utah Jazz. Obviously, they have the best record currently in the NBA, and part of that is the combo of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. seems like after what Shaq has been saying about this team, they just keep shutting him up. Rudy Gobert has been balling out. Donovan Mitchell the same, and all around this roster is fit perfectly and well coached, obviously. And I think they could possibly do some damage in the future.
For me at number 5, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. Um, don't really have much to say. They've been pretty much the best team in the Eastern Conference this year. Um, However, I do not have them ranked number one in the Eastern Conference due to a certain trade that a certain team made. But 10-1 at home, you can't really complain about that. 13-6 on the year. I just think this is a really good Sixers team.
For me, the number 4 team is the Philadelphia 76ers. The roster to me is there wasn't a drop off that I was expecting coming into this year when they lost Josh Richardson. They're playing the basketball they need to play. They're continuing to win games. They're number 1 in the East in terms of standings, and I'm going to leave them there at number 4.
They've only lost one game from a below 500 team. They're 10-1.
Well, my number 4 team is the Los Angeles Clippers. Obviously, they got Kawhi and Paul George, and Paul George has finally stepped it up after the bad slump he had, pandemic P, in the bubble. Seems like he's finally figured it out. The rest of the roster seems to be doing well, even with some lost additions such as Montrezl Harrell. But obviously, Tyronn Lue's been doing a great job coming as the new head coach, and overall, they're a great team.
My number 4 team is the Brooklyn Nets. I would have them higher, but they just have struggled out the gates with this new big three. I do think they will figure it out, and there's no reason to worry. Um, but yeah, they're only 12-8 this year, so there's obviously room for improvement with that team. But they're probably, without question, the best offensive team in the league when they're clicking on all cylinders.
I do have the Nets at 6. I feel the need to say that. I haven't seen enough of the new team yet, and so I didn't put them in the top 5. My number 3 team is actually the Denver Nuggets. I know they're not exactly what the Denver Nuggets were last year. They took a big hit when they lost Jeremy Grant. But I mean, it's still the Nuggets, still Jokic, still Jamal Murray. The team is right where I kind of expected them to be, third, and yeah, that's all I really am going to say about it.
Bold pick. My number 3 team is the Brooklyn Nets. Why they aren't the top team in the East for me? Yes, while they got 3 of the most electrifying players in Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, look what they had to give up. They literally have no defense. I mean, yes, maybe they're just trying to figure it out, but unless this team makes a defensive addition, I think this could be a problem come playoff time. But maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they'll just score 150 while the other team scores 140. I don't know.
My number 3 team is the Utah Jazz. I've always been big on the Jazz, as you guys know. They're without question a top 2 defensive team in the league. Their rim protection obviously is beyond elite with Rudy Gobert. Donovan Mitchell can score the ball like no other. And this is a very good Jazz team that can make some moves. 10-0 in their last 10, by the way.
Oh, you took my fact for later. Number 2, Los Angeles Lakers.
Stop it.
I have the Jazz at 1 because they're 10-0 in the last 10.
Okay.
You can't deny the fact that the Jazz are playing like beyond what they need to be playing like. I mean, to win 10 straight games, regardless of your opponent, that's impressive. And to me, that means you're the number 1 team right now. The Jazz or the Lakers number 2. They're close. I don't have to talk about the Lakers because everyone knows who the Lakers have. It's AD, it's LeBron, blah, 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 blah. That's my 1 and 2.
Wow. Well, my number 2 is the Sixers, and my number 1 is the Lakers. And I feel like if the Sixers make the finals against the Lakers, if both teams make it, I feel this. I mean, you saw it yesterday. I feel this could be a bad matchup for the Lakers for a variety of reasons. But one, Ben Simmons and Embiid can guard LeBron and AD because they actually have the size, which would definitely be a problem. And number too. Uh, they have shooters, obviously Tobias Harris, Danny Green, Seth Curry, great additions, and I mean, it kind of can fall into play and kind of be a problem for the Lakers. But obviously, I have the Lakers number one because I think LeBron's obviously the best player in the world at the moment. AD's obviously a beast, and they also have a great supporting cast. So, but I wouldn't count out the Sixers against the Lakers.
For me, I have the Clippers at 2 and the Lakers at 1. The reason the Clippers are at 2 is they're Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he's 27, 6 and 6 this year. He is playing out of his mind. Uh, that's really all I have to say. Paul George has been up and down. I do think he will, get to a mean standard at some. As for the Lakers, you know, they have LeBron, they have AD, two of the top 5 players in basketball. Although AD has been struggling, which is a bit of a concern for me personally, I do think he has the potential to turn it around. And LeBron, if he just continues playing how he's playing, this team's going to the finals. So, on to our next topic is about Mr. LeBron James. Thoughts on how he's doing this year and why is he playing so well in year 18? Lucas?
I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. We can all see the numbers. He's just playing the way he's played the last few years. He's good at basketball. I mean, to me, this isn't a question that warrants a deep response. Maybe I lack that deep thinking. To me, it's just him doing what he is supposed to be doing. And I did expect him to drop off this year. And he might have minorly, but it isn't as astronomical as I was expecting. And I admit that. Ashton, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I mean the same thing has been said for Tom Brady. It's like, oh, he's gonna fall off the next, and they just continue to play at the elite level, and it's just incredible to see. And even LeBron this year, he is shooting the 3-pointer. I think the best so far in his career at the moment. I mean, there's still a lot
Barely.
of ball to be played, but he is just doing it all for his team. And obviously, with AD struggling, he's kind of had to pick up the load a little bit because of AD's woes. But I just, it's like with Tom Brady. You think that they're gonna fall off one year, and they just keep grinding and keep playing at this elite level.
So yeah, LeBron is a half of a percent above his career high in 3-point percentage. Also taking the most he's ever taken in his career, at 6.5 per game. The thing with LeBron is he has almost taken a bit of a back seat this year with in terms of the ball handling responsibilities. He is kind of deferred a bit to Dennis Schroeder, and that reflects in his assist numbers coming down from 10.2 last year to 7.3 this year. His scoring is at a slight increase, as you would expect with the higher 3-point percentage. So I think he's embracing this a bit of a lesser load, and he's taking more advantage of the opportunities that he gets. If there's nothing else to add there, we'll move on to the Nets. Just kind of talk about this trade as a whole, what we think about. We'll start with the Nets. How we think this big three will work out. Lucas.
I think they'll look good in the regular season. I'm going to see a drop off playoff time. I see them kind of falling into the whole you only have one basketball on the court problem. I mean, you got a lot of different people that want to be shooting that basketball late in the game, including Mr. No Name Joe Harris, who wants to be sitting in the corner taking that late three. Yes, he's not going to get it. It's going to affect morale. I think this Nets team is very good, but I think you're bringing in too many different personalities. Not to mention Kyrie Irving is a psychopath. I mean, he sees things that no one else sees. We don't have to get into that right now. I think that's... And Durant's playing a very good season right now, which I did not expect coming off an Achilles tear. I'm back and forth on this Nets team, and my gut feeling's telling me to buy out of them. So I'm going to stay saying I'm not going to buy in yet.
Yeah, Lucas, like I mentioned it when bringing them up in the power rankings and kind of what you said. unless they get another defensive player, which obviously they just traded Jared Allen away. I don't think this team will do damage in the playoffs, or at least win the finals, just for the fact that they're basically going to have to outscore most of the opponents in the playoffs. I mean, you've seen all their games have either been close games in the fourth quarter or had to go to overtime because of the lack of defense with this roster. If they can get, like, I've heard that Andre Drummond could be set up for a buyout in Cleveland. If they get him, I think that would put the Nets in position. But until they get a player like him, I don't see it with the Nets.
I'm kind of on a different track than you guys. I do think the Nets are the favorites in the Eastern Conference. Even with this current roster as it's constructed, having those three guys, I understand there's only one ball, but I do think having this pretty much a full season to play together, they will figure something out. I I think Steve Nash is a very good coach, unlike Kyrie Irving may believe. Defensively speaking, I don't think they're necessarily as bad as people make it out to be. Obviously, I'm in the camp that James Harden's not a horrible defender. Kyrie Irving is a horrible defender. Kevin Durant is a very good defender, especially from comparing him to his early days. He has improved tremendously. DeAndre Jordan can get the job done at the rim. So I don't think defensively is a 100% necessary improvement to be made. As for the offense, we all know Kevin Durant is right now the second best player in the NBA. James Harden, when he's on, he is a top three player in the NBA. Kyrie Irving, another you just don't know with Kyrie. So yeah, I do think they should be the favorites overall, and they're a very good squad in my opinion.
I think a team that's going to give them some problems would be, if I had to choose one, would be the Sixers. I
I would
mean,
agree.
Joel Embiid is going to have a pretty nice day with DeAndre Jordan or Kevin Durant guarding him. Ben Simmons will be able to slow down Durant. I'm not going to say he's going to stop him. I'm not going to try to say that right now. I think the Sixers' overall defensive depth with Thibault,
Matisse Thybulle would match up on James Harden.
that's what I was getting at. I think he's going to do a good enough job on Harden to slow him down, and I don't buy into Kyrie Irving because I think he's a psychopath. Regardless, the extra guard there should be able to slow him down too. I think, to me, I still think the Sixers are going to end up in the finals. Personally, right now, again, I think they're going to run into the teammate chemistry problems, but I've been known to be wrong.
Yeah, and part of the, even if it's not necessarily defense issue, it's the supporting cast around them. They traded away their best defender and a young Stephen Caruso. Obviously, he has I don't know, the injury or whatever. He had to get the surgery,
He had
but
kidney cancer, and he is now
yep,
cancer free, so good for him.
yep. But I mean, as far as the rest of the supporting cast, obviously Spencer Dinwiddie's out for the year. That takes away a big bench player. Now it's just like the rest of the supporting cast is just kind of lacking. I mean, oh, that would just be me, but it kind of seems to be that way. It seems KD, Kyrie, and James, and then just everybody else is just like you don't know what you're gonna get.
Another guy they traded that I wish they would have kept was Tarian Prince from Baylor. He provided good defensive depth. He was the second team defender. Now they're looking towards Jeff Green to be a late game defender. I mean, the guy's getting old. He's starting to move slower. You're going to start seeing problems there. You can't play DeAndre Jordan a ton of minutes a game because he's getting old. He's getting slower. I mean, you're running into this depth problem that, like Ashton was saying, that you don't really want to be seeing. Yes, if they can start blowing teams out of the water early, they're going to be a great team. But until then, eh.
Well, Aaron just dropped his computer on the ground and got kicked out of the chat, so that's nice. Where are we at? Nets?
Yeah, we're still talking about the Nets and just lack of depth on that team. Go ahead and give your
Okay.
input before we move on to the Rockets.
Well, I do think it could potentially be an issue, but when you think about it, they're always going to have two of their scorers on the court at all times, and so I don't necessarily think depth is too big of an issue for that team.
But when you pull Kevin Durant and you're running James Harden and Kyrie Irving, Yes, I know you're pretty big on James Harden's defense. That's okay. But you lose a lot of defense by taking Durant out of the game. And that's what I was saying is you don't have Tariq Prince to come in. You're bringing in Jeff Green, who, I mean, he's getting old.
I'm
He's moving
fine with
slower.
Jeff Green.
He's getting old. He's moving slower. I'm not with it.
That seems to be where we differ.
Ashton, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I made outscore people unless they can get themselves maybe a cheap defensive player. So I don't know.
All right. Now we'll move on to one of the other sides of this trade is the Houston Rockets. Lucas, you wanted this topic, so give us your thoughts.
First of all, thank you, Jesus Christ, for giving Christian Wood the chance to play basketball. I said on draft day he was going to be good, and I stood by it, and look at where he ended up.
Have you
That's
ever had
beside the
any
fact.
transcriptions of what you've said on draft day? Because I've never seen those transcripts.
I mean, I could call my brother, but he's probably asleep because it's 9 o'clock at night and he works a job. You know, we get the point. But when Christian Wood was undrafted, I had him picked like 16 in that draft when I mocked it. And to me, it was a player that was just overall missed. He had his rough fight to the league. He's in it now. He's playing how I expected him to. Another guy, Victor Oladipo, playing this year. He's played 4 games. I get it, but he's averaging 21 points a game, which to me is more than I really expected to come out of Victor Oladipo. John Wall is playing how John Wall should be playing basketball. I'm big on John Wall. I always have been. I always will be, regardless of how old he gets and how slow he gets. I'm still going to say he's fast. I don't care. Eric Gordon is an 18-year-old, or is getting 18 points a game. He's definitely not 18 years old. He's getting 18 points a game. I'm seeing a nice balanced scoring attack from this team. And to me, that's just all around a just good squad. So, anyway, Ashton, your thoughts?
Ashton's having some issues right now, so I will say my thoughts. Me personally, I think this sets the Rockets up good for the rebuild. I think rebuilding around Christian Wood and Victor Oladipo is a very good idea. As for John Wall, I don't really know where he fits in this. I believe they'll end up letting him go eventually. But they did have to get rid of Russell Westbrook, so that was the best they could get for him. I do think this Rockets team will be pretty good eventually. It's just kind of depending on how well that new front office drafts and if they can hit on anybody. Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, right now it seems after trading James Harden, it seems like it's been a great fit for the Rockets. John Wall can play more comfortably. Obviously, they have Oladipo. Christian Wood has been balling out. Not to mention they have DeMarcus Cousins. Well, yes, he's not the same player he once was. He can still be that effective big man for this roster. And overall, their supporting cast isn't bad either. Obviously, they also have Eric Gordon, which he's not a bad player either. For the future, obviously, like with the Thunder, gonna have some draft picks, but I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Who knows? Maybe with the new playoff system, they could possibly sneak in for the eighth seed. Currently at 8 and 9, who knows what could happen?
Yeah, and I don't think I have anything else on the National Basketball Association.
Yeah, that's all I got too.
All right, Lucas, take it
And
over.
And now we'll be talking about baseball. First up, had Andrelton Simmons just made a contract signing with the Minnesota Twins. Obviously, Aaron wants to talk about this for 6 hours. We're going to hold him to one. Aaron, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on the signing.
Well, this is a fantastic signing. I love the deal. 1 year, $10.5 million. It's kind of a prove-it deal for 31-year-old Andrelton Simmons. If you guys have ever seen the YouTuber Foolish Baseball, he made a fantastic video on Andrelton Simmons and how he is essentially Ozzie Smith 2.0 and he should make the Hall of Fame. I 100% agree with that statement when you look at his defensive WAR and all that. He's going to stack up a bunch of stats, and he has a very good shot at becoming the Hall of Fame. And I do believe if he can just keep up a average to above average clip offensively, this is a tremendous value for the Twins, and I love it.
yeah, I totally agree with you, Aaron. And I mean, now assuming Marlon Gonzalez won't be returning, I mean, he will definitely. Who knows? Maybe Jorge Polanco kind of regresses,
I
and
believe they're moving him to
Simmons kind of.
second, and they're going to use Arias as a super utility.
Oh, yep. Never mind. Yep, you are right about that. I've heard that too. So, I mean, this could be great for the Twins. I mean, obviously, you saw what happened with Polanco in against Houston in I forget what game it was, but I mean, just the simple stuff like that. Simmons is just such a great defender, and like you said, Aaron, he's just gotta improve with the bat, and if he can be a somewhat decent hitter, not only could it be good for this year, but I think it could be good for Simmons' future as well.
My viewpoint on this is I think Anderson Simmons is a great defender. I've never really bought into his hitting ability. I do like the comment about him being Ozzie Smith 2.0 for obvious reasons. Go Cards. I think it's an excellent signing. Filled a hole that they needed to fill. Well, not really a hole, more or less a spot they could improve in because the Twins were very solid last year, in my opinion. And I think this will work well for him. Is that all we got on Mr. Simmons?
Uh, yeah, I was just gonna add one more quick thing. I do think he'll be slotted in at probably 7 or 8 in the lineup, so don't expect him to be like a top of the lineup type of guy. Ashton, you brought up a great point there in that playoff game. Anderson Simmons makes that play no matter what, and I'm very excited to watch him play shortstop this year, and I'm sure the pitching staff is as well.
Moving on, Francisco Lindor traded to the Mets. Where does this put the Mets now? Ashton, go ahead and start, just to make Aaron wait.
I mean, with how baseball can go, I think this can make them easily a contender because baseball is a very interesting sport. One year, one guy might kind of have a massive slump and just not do at all, and then the next year, I mean, they'll just be on fire. Like, look at the Nats. They go. I know it was a shortened season last year with COVID, but they go from World Series to missing the playoffs. I mean, the Mets definitely have the possibility of being a World Series contender with Francisco Lindor, and obviously the great pitching staff.
Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the key to this ball club is going to be Noah Syndergaard. Because we know what Jacob deGrom is. We know that they are the favorites for Trevor Bauer, which we'll talk about later. And we understand that this lineup is very good. Michael Conforto, Brandon Demo, Pete Alonso, whenever he can figure crap out, as he was horrible last year. They do need to figure out the catcher position as well, if they didn't address that already, which they might have. I haven't been paying too close of attention. Jeff McNeil, obviously another great bat, and this just bolsters that lineup even more. And defensively was really where they struggled the most last year, as they were horrible in that department. I think this is a huge upgrade. One of probably the 5 best defensive shortstops in the league, and in my opinion, he is the best shortstop in the league. So yeah, this is a great value, and I think this puts the Mets right near the top of the NL East, but that is a very difficult division with teams like the Phillies, Nats, and Braves, and even the Marlins, who made the playoffs last year. So this is a very loaded division, but I think if they can just add that one more piece in Trevor Bauer, this puts them right up there with the Dodgers and Padres.
What I'm going to say here, first of all, Aaron, you made the comment about catcher. Right now, according to ESPN, the catcher they have slotted is James McCannon.
Oh, yep, they did send James, so they did address catcher. Good call on that one, Lucas.
Just thought I wanted to cut in there. My opinion, this team is definitely a contender. Yeah, they're in a strong division. I really like this team. I like Lindor. I like Conforto. I think Alonso will turn it around this year. You got DeGrom. You got Carrasco. Never good pronunciations if you guys don't already know. Stroman. I mean, there's a lot of pitchers that I have actually heard of. And I think the pitching core is going to help them a lot. I think this team will contend. However, it's baseball. I'm not going to put my money down on baseball.
I actually completely forgot they got Carlos Carrasco in that trade too. Good.
I figured that's why I cut that one in.
Yeah, that bolsters that pitching staff a lot too. Is Carrasco is a great guy, especially great in the locker room too.
That's for sure. Yeah, it was a really good trade in my opinion. Mets picked up 2 really good Indians. Perfect. Anyway, next up, Aaron already hinted at it. I want Aaron to start. Trevor Bauer, where's he going? Give me 3 teams. Go.
Well, the Mets have allegedly made an offer to Bauer as of yesterday, so I do believe that the Mets are the favorites right now. Other teams in contention would be teams like the Angels, who there have been conflicting reports on them, whether they're out or in. There's been some saying they're out. I think personally they're probably still in, just trying to kick the tires on whether or not they want to give that big contract to Bauer. Look for teams like maybe the Padres to think about it, and there's also been reports that Bauer wants to wait for the Dodgers to make an offer as well. So I believe those are the four teams you're looking at. If I had to cut one team out, it would be the Padres of that group. And if I had to rank them, it would be Mets at number one, Dodgers two, Angels three in terms of favorites for Bauer.
Yeah, so for me, the best fitting team for this is the Mets. I don't see the Dodgers going out and getting him. Obviously, they can because they're the Dodgers. They can do whatever they want. I don't see the Angels making this massive contract to this guy. To me, the Mets are most likely where he's going to go. However, again, as I will say a million times this year for the podcast, it is baseball. Anything can happen.
So actually, as of January 25th, which is 3 days ago, so this offer was not extended by the Mets at the time. But the betting favorites were the Dodgers, followed very closely by the Angels and Yankees, Mets in fourth. I'm sure now after that offer, the Mets would be right up there near the top, but just so everyone has a little bit of reference for that.
Ashton, what do you think?
Uh, for me, I think out of all of them, I would say either the. I mean, ooh, I definitely think he should either go to one of the LA teams or one of the New York teams because one, big media coverage, and two, all of them are well talented. But out of the two, I would say the Dodgers or the Mets. Dodgers because all around great roster, great hitting, great fielding, great pitching. And with the Mets, I mean, they could have a loaded rotation, and Bauer could just fit in right well with that roster.
Yeah, that would be one of the best rotations ever. You would have, in my opinion, the two best pitchers in baseball on the same team, followed by
That's what I was thinking.
Carrasco, Stroman, and Syndergaard. That is one of those fives that you just cannot match by any team. Like that is a disgusting five, especially if Syndergaard can figure his crap out.
I was gonna say, and having Syndergaard slash Stroman as your worst, that's elite, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Moving on to the next guy, we got JT Muto. He re-signed with the Phillies. I'm gonna go first here because I'm not gonna be able to give much input. This surprised me. I really thought he was gonna try and go somewhere else. Obviously, the Phillies had the money; they gave him the money. But I really figured he was gonna go for a developed team already because he is, in my opinion, the best catcher in baseball. And I really thought he was gonna go somewhere that just needed a catcher and he'd fill in and he'd go straight to the World Series. But he must believe in the Phillies, what they have going. Good for him. I don't agree. Aaron, what do you got?
I love this move by the Phillies. Obviously, I agree. Best catcher in baseball. 5 years, 115.5 million was the final deal. I did. There was many reports saying that he would be looking at the Braves, or the Braves were looking at him, and I think the Phillies, excuse me, just were not going to allow that to happen as the Braves are an in division rival. So yeah, this is a great move by the Phillies, and I actually think it was very affordable too. I would have expected him to get upwards of 30 to 32 AAV, but getting him for the price that they did, it's a no brainer.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have pretty much said it. Great deal for the Phillies, and I know Lucas thinks he should have went elsewhere. Part of it is maybe he does, like Aaron said, trust the Phillies process, and part of it is too, he's got to think about his own situation. Maybe he likes what's going on in Philadelphia, and maybe he's comfortable kind of living there for most of his life. So, and obviously, it's just we'll see what happens with the Phillies. I mean, they definitely have a little bit of promising talent with that roster, but we'll just see what happens in the future.
Moving on to it, one last signing. Got George Springer to the Blue Jays, 6 years, $150 million. Aaron, lead off.
I love what the Blue Jays are doing. They have been rebuilding for the past few years, getting their guys. I mean, they had one of the best farm systems in the league for a very long time, and now I think that they are finally going for it and trying to take down the big bad Yankees. Signing guys like Steven Matz, as well with George Springer is it's just a great move overall, and I love what the Jays are doing, and I expect them to contend in the AL East this year.
Yeah, it seems like the Jays are basically kind of going all in a little bit, not fully, but they made so many additions this offseason, like Aaron said, and they could possibly contend with the Yankees. Obviously, their division is a little interesting, but I mean, they could definitely be a top contender this year with how many additions they made.
And who knows, maybe they come in late for Trevor Bauer
I mean,
because they
yeah,
did
that's
go
what I was
after
kind of
Real
thinking.
Muto, and if they want to land another top free agent, I mean, Bauer's the guy to get.
Yeah, that was what I was getting ready to make a comment about was I wasn't for sure if I wanted to commit on the pitching core, and I was hoping they were going to go after someone else still. I wasn't thinking Bauer, but Bauer would be perfect. I wanted to make a comment like, to me, this team looks pretty good on paper when I'm just reading the names off. I mean, first, you have Vladdy Jr. at first, Simeon at second, Biggio at third, Bichette at shortstop. I mean, those four are just going to really play well this year, in my opinion. I think the Blue Jays will end up taking down the Yankees this year because the Yankees always slump, knock on some wood. Always.
And not to mention, I mean, you have Gurriel and Teoscar Hernandez in the outfield as well, who are two
And Randall
very good
Grichuk.
pieces. Well, he's not going to get any playing time after they sign Springer.
Give him some. Come on.
I suppose.
Or
Okay.
Cardinal
Okay.
player. Give him
Yeah,
some love.
Randall Grichuk. Okay.
Thank you,
Super
thank you.
utility, Randall Grichuk. But yeah, Teoscar Hernandez had one of the best power seasons we've seen in recent years last year, and I think he will do good at expanding on that.
I agree fully. Now for our last baseball topic, there was no Hall of Fame inductees this year. Kurt Schilling wants off the ballot, wants to go straight to the vet committee. Aaron, give me some thoughts. What do you know?
I can't stand the MLB Hall of Fame. We know how I feel about steroids. I don't think it's that bad. There are plenty of MLB players in the Baseball Hall of Fame that have done much worse. You look at guys like Mickey Mantle, who was essentially popped for steroids. He had to miss a game because um, of that, and then everyone just wrote it off. So, I mean, you look at there's plenty of bad people in the Baseball Hall of Fame, so it's obviously not a character concern. Just put these guys in. They deserve it. Kurt Schilling's a Hall of Famer. Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer. Roger Clemens is a Hall of Famer. Todd Helton's a Hall of Famer. I'll keep going if you want me to. But I would have
Please do.
voted for probably 7 to 8 guys. Bobby Abreu's a Hall of Famer. Sure, I'll keep going. So yeah, I would have voted for a good amount last year. And next year is going to be most of these guys' last year eligibility, especially Bonds, Clemens, and Schilling. So you would expect them to get in, but obviously this could be a Veterans Committee move. Schilling, I mean, there's really no reason to want off the ballot, but he makes a very valid point that the BBWAA is very inconsistent and very biased with who they put in, who they don't. So yeah, I think it's just kind of disgusting. And also next year, you got A-Rod coming on the ballot. So what are they going to do with him? He was obviously popped for steroids. What does that mean for him? So yeah, it's a complete mess and a complete joke. And I believe the BBWAA is a piece of junk.
Yeah, Aaron, you made some great points. I mean, looking at other sports, it seems like baseball, they're almost making it kind of impossible to make the Hall of Fame. It's just kind of ridiculous. There are definitely some big names that should be in it, you feel like, but obviously because of maybe past incidents like Barry Bonds and his whole steroid use and everything, it's kind of dumb, and I could see why there is frustration going on with the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think this whole thing's just a mess because you have to go off of past president, and the past president just isn't clean with baseball. It's kind of a wavy line. It's not like they've really been like, oh yeah, this is where we draw the line because it's kind of jump back and forth. And to me, that makes this a hard thing to do. You're almost to the point where you do need to do what Aaron said and just say, hey, ignore the character, let him in. But obviously, I don't support that. Whatever. It's just now to the point where you don't have the precedent that you're supposed to have to go off of the past. And that's where I see the biggest problem with how this is happening.
And I mean, we all agree that Barry Bonds would have been one of the best players without steroids, but we all know that almost every single person in the 90s was taking it. And when you watch you watch these at bats with Barry Bonds, it's fun to watch. Like, he saved baseball. I hate to say it. Him, McGuire, and Sosa saved baseball. And the thing that people don't realize is Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame, who turned a blind eye to all this steroid use before Jose Canseco came out with his book. People don't realize that, but Bud Selig has gotten off completely clean with all this, just racking up the cash from these steroid users, and nobody else is talked about besides the fact that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire are all juiced. So, yeah.
Yeah, just overall, that's a great opinion about the matter, Aaron. It's just crazy how they hold people accountable for past situations when looking at the future now. I mean, who knows what other players, obviously, they're more strict with the drug testing and stuff, but even back then, like, that you don't know how many other players were doing what Barry was doing, and it just so happened Barry was the one to get caught.
He never got caught. That's what people also don't realize. He never tested positive for steroids. He obviously took them. It's universally agreed that he took them, but it's just they didn't test for steroids back then. They were technically not allowed, but they were allowed. So that's my piece.
Lucas?
I mean, I'm good here.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Sports Enthusiast Podcast. We plan on being back next week with another episode, and the week after that with another episode. So hopefully we get to a very consistent schedule here with kind of things turning into shape. We try to do, what we can, and we'll make this a priority in the future. Anything from you guys?
Yeah, obviously we're gonna try and be more consistent. Obviously it's been tough, COVID going on. We're all pretty busy with work, school, all those types of things. And not to mention, next week's gonna be a big one. Discussion of the Super Bowl. So, Lucas?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is just a little sneak peek. Believe it or not, the Super Bowl will be mentioned next week. I'm glad everyone that took the time to listen, not only now, but while we were over on our break. We did have some people listening to old episodes. We appreciate you guys. Feel free to always reach out to us. We like to have guests on the show. We like to talk to people. If you're out there, let us know. Aaron, go ahead and close her down.
Yep, check us out on Instagram at The Sports Enthusiast, Twitter at Sports ENT Pod. Give us 5-star on Apple Podcasts, like the video on YouTube. Whatever other ratings you can give us good ones. We appreciate you all for listening, and you guys all have a fantastic day, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.